A December to remember?
Good morning. Just struggling to get this microphone on, as well as maintain my very serious preacher's hat. So, no, I'm fine with this one, thank you. I'd love to, but due to COVID, I can't wear your hat, so. Cool, good morning, welcome. Awesome. Woo. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Joel. If we haven't yet met, it's really great to be together. Feel free to move in on the seats and stuff. We've now got some space as our amazing young people are now gone to their sessions. If you're joining us online, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you pop a chat, say hello, and participate with us this morning. It's really, really, really good to be together. I hope you're having fun so far. We realized it's something that we really wanted to do, and I just want to tell you why we're doing what we're doing. A lot of people, sometimes when you think of the word church, you don't actually think of something fun. Sometimes it's an institution, sometimes it's an organization, sometimes it's something that maintains tradition, and we really wanted to create an atmosphere of fun. And if you think about what Jesus did a lot of things that were unexpected. He touched people he shouldn't have touched. He spoke to people he shouldn't have spoken to. He cared for those who were actually outcasts or those who were written off within society. Some of his closest friends were those who everyone else hated. Jesus always did that which was unexpected. And as Christians, as followers of Jesus, let's not get so stuffy that we think that what we do on a Sunday morning shouldn't sometimes be unexpected. And Jesus did things that nobody else was doing because he wanted to reach people that nobody else was reaching. And hopefully you're watching this morning, maybe you're online, maybe you're here in this room, and maybe this isn't a church that anything you'd ever expected to discover or encounter before. And we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take following Jesus very seriously. And we want to have a laugh. We don't live long on this earth, so we might as well look to find ways that we can enjoy it while we can. There's enough doom and gloom in our world, so let's be those who spread cheer. And if it does mean some people wear a few silly costumes and have light-up hats on a Sunday morning, so be it. Because we want to be a place that reaches people that no one else is reaching. So, a little bit of an intro, a little bit of a caveat, but thank you so much for being here this morning and going along with some exciting stuff. It's really our heart and our passion to be a place where people can find and follow Jesus. On to the talk now, right? Yay! No, anyway, cool. I'll tell you a story. When I was 15, I spent a couple months in Guatemala. And we, being Americans, we decided to go out to eat. So we went to McDonald's. No, just kidding. We went to Pizza Hut. So we went to Pizza Hut, and yes, they had Pizza Hut in Guatemala. So, of course, we went to Pizza Hut. And another friend who was in this group said he was going to order this pizza for us because he can speak Spanish. So he said. So he went up and he placed the order, and he ordered 6 jamon pizzas. And so about 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, the pizzas arrived. And something didn't smell quite right. In fact, it smelled just a little bit fishy. And instead of saying jamon, he said atún, which is actually Spanish for tuna. So instead of getting 6 large ham pizzas, we got 6 large tuna pizzas. And I'm not really I like fish, but I'm not really a big fan of seafood pizza. So I'm just going to recommend now, if you ever go on vacation or holiday or missions trip or something, and you're in another country, don't go to Pizza Hut and don't order fish pizza. It's not really the great experience. But have you ever noticed this idea of language, having to use these words that someone else understands, and to be communicated and to be understood is quite tricky. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but sometimes even when we have the same culture and we use the same language, we're still misunderstood. Just ask my wife, right? Yeah. I'm sure I said this. No. Or ask my children. And it reminds me, this idea of having to be understood and be able to communicate in a way that people grasp reminded me of a Christmas movie. And we're doing a Christmas movie every single Sunday. And if you've seen the movie Love Actually, this is not necessarily an endorsement. If you've seen it, you know why I'm saying that. There might be a few bits you don't want to watch with children in the room, and certainly not with your parents in the room. Oh my word, that is the most embarrassing thing ever. Anyway, there's certain bits of the film, Love Actually, that are really, really quite poignant. But anyway, there's this bit where the character played by Colin Firth, his name is Jamie, and he falls for this Portuguese girl, and he has to try to communicate to her, and he's going to try to be understood. And he needs to speak in a way that she can understand. And see, whether you believe in Jesus or not, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Jesus follower or Jesus hater, you understand this idea that what we say needs to be understood. You understand that's universal. This isn't like a Christian thing. This is a universal thing. And whatever experience you have, you understand that people need to understand what we're communicating. And I just want to play a little clip from the film to show you the scene where he goes to the one that he loves because he's willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. So here we go.
Bonita Aurélia, eu vim aqui para te pedir para casar comigo. Eu sei que você é louco, porque mal te conheço, mas às vezes as coisas são muito claras para mim, porque não preciso de prova. Eu vivo aqui, ou tu vives na Inglaterra comigo.
Mas é para a Inglaterra, rapariga. Pode ser que conheças o príncipe William, casas-te, mas é com ele.
Shhh. É claro que eu saber que tu não és tão louca como eu. É claro que eu pensar que tu dizes não. Mas é Natal, eu só queria saber.
Oh, pelo amor de Deus! Diz que sim, minha carvalhona!
Thank you. That will be nice. Yes, is being my answer. Easy question.
O que é que tu disseste?
Sim, claro.
You learned English?
Just in cases.
Smoochy, smoochy. That's where Caden puts a pillow over his face. But the thing about this was his character was willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. He travels to another country to learn another language. He embraces the culture. He goes out of his way to win her heart. It didn't matter the cost, and it didn't matter the lengths that he has to go to, because he's willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. And he doesn't even know if the one that he loves is going to reciprocate. He doesn't even know if she's going to respond. if you were, speaking the language of another is critical for all relationships. You know that. And learning to speak with others and communicate with another is incredibly important. It's just incredibly important. And I've just lost where I am in my notes, so give us a moment. They are numbered, but sometimes numbers don't even make sense. No, just kidding. Oh, thank you. Top of page 2, says the guy in the back. That's really good. Yeah. And he learns this other language. And this whole idea of like doing whatever it takes to go out of your way to learn another language, to win the heart of the one you love, reminds me of that first Christmas story. You can see where I'm going with this, I'm sure. Another time when someone went to another country, another time when somebody went to great lengths, another time when somebody went into another culture, another time when someone went out of their way to win the heart of the one that they loved. And it didn't matter the lengths they had to go to, it didn't matter the costs that they had to pay, because they were willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. And this same person did that, even though they didn't know whether the person that they loved was ever going to reciprocate or respond to his feelings, to their feelings. And the thing that I find interesting about Christmas is something that we normally make a what? Like a what? Like an event. Because it's an event, it's a what? And it's done sometimes like this, just matter-of-factly. If I was sort of a newsreader, it's like, breaking news. This evening, over a hill in Bethlehem, a group of shepherds were watching their sheep when suddenly they were interrupted by what some are calling a divine experience. One eyewitness said, suddenly the sky was filled with angelic beings announcing good news that a baby had been born that would rescue the world. We make Christmas into a what? Make it like an event, a catalog of things that took place. Because sometimes that's what we do with history, don't we? We events that have happened in our past, we make them into these whats. And over these few 3 weeks, we want to actually, instead of looking at the what, we want to look at the why. We want to look at why? Because less often I think we look at the why of the Christmas story. And instead of looking at the what, we were going to look at the why Christmas even happened in the first place. Like, why would God just go with me here. You don't even have to be a follower of Jesus to go along with this. Like, why would God come as a human? It's such a weird thing. And if I was a God, the last thing I would do is come as a human or come as something that I created. Think about it. I don't think you would either. If you were all powerful, if you were like, a God, you were all powerful, you had all this might, you had all this strength, all this ability, and you could do anything, become anything, you could do anything. Yet you decide to become something that needs to eat every few hours, that needs to drink, needs to go to the toilet, and you can't go to the toilet by yourself. Somebody else has to wipe your backside. You have to make sure that you're wrapped up when it's cold so you don't freeze. When it's so hot, you have to make sure that you're covered so you don't burn. I mean, why would you come as something so weak and helpless as a baby? And it's like constant. If you've ever had a little baby in your life, it isn't like, okay, I'll feed you every Tuesday. Man, it's like every couple hours. It's constant. A baby is so dependent. And if you've not had children yet, let me tell you this, it'll ruin your life, okay? So it's all good, but it'll ruin your life, okay? That thing called sleep, forget it, okay? That nice car you want when you get older, a sports car, forget it, okay? Just don't worry about it. Being anywhere on time, forget it, okay? Let me just tell you now, eating nice meals, no, it's going to be fish fingers and peas, okay? Just forget it, okay? Kids ruin your life in the best way, but they're so dependent. They're not dependable. They're so dependent. Every moment, every little second, they need something. They need to be taken care of. And if you were a God, if you could be anything, absolutely anything, why in the world would you come as a helpless, babbling, puny little baby? And if I was a God, if I was going to come down as something, I would have chosen something much more impressive than a baby, for sure. Totally, for sure. if I happen to make the unfortunate mistake of being a human, like, I mean, come on, like we could aim higher than being a baby, you know? Really? Like, come on, lightning, thunder, cool costumes, cool hair, like, you know, his arms are a bit smaller than mine, but anyway, you know, like, you know, if you could be a god, you would come as something much more impressive to everybody around you. You wouldn't come as a baby. And you see, you know this is true whether you're a follower of Jesus or not. You know that this idea is true. You wouldn't do it. But why would you come as a baby? Why? It's not what, it's why. Why would you come as a baby? Because he was willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. Willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. The one who is all-knowing and knew all things had to learn to speak again. The one who words themselves were life to people. The one whose words themselves were like potent, powerful words that brought things to life. The very one whose words were life actually became wordless. Because he's willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. He had to learn again to speak. And I love this idea. Think about this. You know, if think about this, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute and shout out some answers for me. You know, little children, little babies, you know, what are some of the first words that they ever learn? You know, what's the first word a baby learns to say? What do you think? No. No. Dada. Good. Mama, dada, mama, dada, dada, mama. That's like, and this is really cool. I find this so fascinating. If you study language, there's lots of different theories and lots of ideas why this is what it is the way it is. But did you know that all around the world, in lots of different cultures, whether it's Scandinavian, European, Indo-European, whether it's Australian, whether it's African, whether it's in the Asian continents, all around the world, there's a similar word that babies use for mama or dada. It's similar all around. You know, and I wonder, can you just imagine, like, you've seen it before, haven't you? You know, you're cooing with the baby and his bright eyes, and you're talking to the child, and da, 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 and you help them form sounds, and you make noises with them, and da, 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 mama, mama, mama. And this happens all around the world. And just imagine, Mary is there, and she's got Jesus on her lap, and she's there playing with him, and she's like, da, 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 mama, mama, mama. And the one whose words and the one who was all-knowing learns again to speak. And when Joseph comes in the room, she's like, dada, dada, or they would say Abba or Abba. Some friends of ours from Syria, they call their father Baba. Baba, Baba, Baba. It's all around the world. This language that is used to refer to, you know, mama and dada. You know, Abba, Abba, that's your daddy. Abba, Abba, as she's saying that to the baby. And Jesus is learning to speak because he's willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. You know, at that stage of life, of course, children are so innocent and pure and bright-eyed and so full of wonder for the world. You know, and Jesus hadn't yet discovered, of course, that he would grow up to be misunderstood and mistreated. You know, he didn't have an experience yet when he's with his friends and somebody hurts his feelings. You know, he didn't, you know, realize he can get laughed at and picked on. He hadn't yet been betrayed or arrested. And at that stage of life, you know, all of us didn't live in a world thinking that we would be abandoned or mistreated, or, you know, we live in a world that people can be so incredibly cruel to little ones. You know, I don't need to belabor the point, but we live in a world where people can be so incredibly cruel to little ones. And the little ones, they have no idea. They're just so innocent and bright-eyed, and they're entering this world of like wonder and experience. And in those formative moments, Mary's there teaching Jesus how to speak and call out, Daddy, Daddy, when he was still a baby. And the funny thing is, the cool thing is, I find that this word Abba is used later on. It's written about later on in Scripture. Abba, Baba. It's written about later on. And there's this guy, Paul. We talked about him last week. Paul was this guy who was basically, we'd call him a fundamentalist now. He was a rule keeper. He was not a rule breaker. And if you broke the rules, then you were in trouble, let me tell you so. And Paul went out of his way. He was called Saul before, and he went out of his way to do whatever he could to stop those who followed Jesus. It says he's described as just breathing threats. You could read about it in his book called Acts. It's like a history book of the early church. You can read about it, and it's found within the collection of books called the Bible. And you can read about Paul's story. And Paul is a historically verifiable individual. There's stuff all around the world, especially in the Mediterranean, that references Paul as a real person. There's stuff that he wrote. There's images. There's so much history about Paul actually having really existed and really lived and really wrote these things. And Paul is actually regarded, whether you follow Jesus or not, Paul is regarded as a real pioneer. He's the first person to talk about equality among people. He's the first one. He writes about how we're equal in God. There's no male or female, Jew or Gentile. He writes some radical concepts which are way before his time. And he's regarded by those who are linguists or scientists and sociologists and historians. They even regard Paul, they don't have to believe in Jesus, but they regard that what Paul wrote about and talked about was forward thinking. And there's nobody that really says Paul never really existed. And Paul was an incredibly intellectual person. He was a deep thinker. He was a theologian. He was the best of the best, the top of his class. And this guy, Paul, who was so good at keeping the rules and so good at doing everything, he had this experience with Jesus which totally changed his life. And he went from a Jesus hater to a Jesus follower. If you might be in that position today, you might be thinking, I'm not really sure about Jesus. But Paul is somebody that you should look up. Just read about his life. What happened in his life and why did he change? And Paul, who was one of the most educated, one of the most learned people ever, he also knew, as a rule keeper, a good Jewish boy never utters the name of God. You don't say the name, you don't speak the name. And even if you're an Orthodox Jew today, you wouldn't write the name in full anyway. It's still what you do. And they do that because it says, do not take the Lord's name in vain. And they make sure that they don't do anything that would take the Lord's name in vain. They don't say the name, they don't write the name in full. You don't say the name of God. And Paul would know that because Paul was a deep thinker. He was a theologian. He was a student. He was the best of his class. He was the top in his group. And Paul, this guy who knows that you don't even utter the name of God himself, writes this profoundly deep theology. But it's simple. Real theology is simple, even though it's deep. And he writes this. It's in Romans, and it says, the spirit that you've received doesn't make you a slave so that you live in fear. The spirit you've received from God doesn't make you a slave. If you follow Jesus and he's given his spirit to you, you don't become a slave and you don't live in fear. But instead, it gives you adoption as children. And to him we cry, Abba. Abba. Why would the most learned man at that time, why would this deep theological thinker say that the way you relate to God is the same way a babbling infant does? You see, Paul had a radical experience with Jesus. He had a radical encounter. His whole worldview changed. And it went from being a rule keeper to somebody who lived out of relationship. It's so simple, but it's an incredibly deep. Paul says, we reproach as Abba. We call God Abba. Use the word that a baby can use, bright-eyed, full of wonder. In spite of all of the stuff that happens as you get older, in spite of all the stuff that makes you get bitter and jaded and taken advantage of in life, in spite of all those things that come our way, in spite of all the difficulties, in spite of all the junk that happens as you grow older, Paul doesn't say relate to God out of that point in your life, relate to God out of this point as a baby that just says, Abba. You know, life is tough. Life is really tough sometimes. When Paul says, Abba, Abba, call to God as Abba, Abba. And I find that fascinating. Don't you find that just like mind-blowing? But the God of the universe reduces himself to a puny little baby to relearn again the language. And the word that he learns to talk about his own daddy when he's a little tiny infant is the same word that Paul says that's how we approach God. And it's not through fear, and you're not a slave. Wow. It's not through fear, and you're not a slave. It's like you're a child. It's like you're a little baby in the arms of God. He's not disappointed with you. He's not expecting you to perform. You don't have a tick list of things to accomplish because that's what a slave does. You must make sure you get certain things done in certain times, in certain ways. No. And it isn't fear. It isn't like cowering, like wondering, is God going to be pleased with me today? Have I done enough to make him happy? Have I done enough to make him okay with me? Like it isn't fear. It's just like a baby. And it's so simple, but it's actually so deep. You want deep theology? There you go. Approach God like a baby. You see, it's just crazy that Paul would talk about these things. And I don't know how you have grown up or what your experience has been, how you think that you need to approach God. Maybe you think you have to be more clever. Maybe you think you have to prove yourself. Maybe you think you need to bring your list of accomplishments, which hopefully is longer than your list of failures. I don't know in my life. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. But maybe you think you got to, prove to God that you've got it all sorted now. I'm okay. I'm settled. I'm emotionally all right. I'm mentally okay. I'm in a good place now, God. I'm here. I'm all right. Yeah. This is a good settled time. I don't know how you feel you have to approach God. Maybe you think you have to do more. And if only you did more, served more, gave more, whatever, if you just did more and whatever that means to you. Or maybe you think you have to figure it all out. Maybe you got to get all your ducks in a row and get everything tidied up and get everything perfect and get it all lined up. I don't know your expectation or anticipation of how you approach God, but this simple verse reminds us, as Paul just says, approach God as Abba, Daddy, Papa, Papi, Pa. I don't know what word you use in your culture, in your language. What do you use? That's the way he encourages us to approach. Because God was willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language in order to win your heart. Is it cool that the language that he learned is the same one that he invites us to learn? I just think it's so cool. Out of all the words he could have chosen, out of all the things he could have picked, he picks one that is relevant to all cultures, to all nations, to all experiences. It's a universal word all around the world. Isn't that cool? Just think about that. It's such a simple little word, but it's universal. Wow. That's just cool. He doesn't choose a word that shows how clever you are. He doesn't choose a word that you can show how privileged and wealthy you are. It's not a secret word that you knock on a door and they, password, baguette, you're in. Yeah. It's not like some secret password. And he chooses a word that babies all around the world can utter. And instead of not saying the name of God, Paul encourages us to actually just call him Abba, Daddy. Paul encourages us to use baby words. It's crazy. And my question for you today is, in this December to remember, how will you respond? How will you respond to the one who learned your language to win your heart? Maybe this December we could stop thinking of Christmas as a what, as an event, and more of a why. Discover the why of Christmas once again. And instead of maybe thinking that God is absent or distant, this season reminds us that God came near, that God came close. He moved into the neighborhood and he became one of us. You might feel that God is uncaring or unloving or just absent. But Christmas reminds us that he gave up everything for no other reason except love. He moved heaven and earth to show us what he was like. And he had no idea whether you were going to say yes to the invitation. You might feel that God is an evil tyrant who makes demands in your life. And maybe that's been maybe that's because of your education, maybe that's been your upbringing, maybe that's just been the way that you're wired. Maybe you feel like God is a demanding tyrant. But Christmas reminds us again that we approach with the words that babies can use. Abba, Daddy. And you don't have to have many other words. You just use the one word. Daddy, Father, Baba. We're going to close now with a song that reminds us that what we can do when we run to the Father or come to the Father. And I'd like, while the song is playing, let the words of the song become your prayer. Let it be your response. And if we can do anything to journey with you, to walk with you, we would love to journey together as we together learn what it means to follow Jesus. I'm absolutely passionate about helping people find and follow Jesus. And we want to walk together with you. We want to journey together. We believe it does change your life. It's not like some magic sales thing, but it just changes your life because it changes the way you think about things. It changes the way you live, and it changes the way you love. And that's why it changes your life. We're going to close with this song now. Before we do that, I'm just going to pray. Jesus, we thank you so much that you came to earth and you were willing to do whatever it takes to learn the language. I thank you that you surprise us again. And maybe for some of us, we've heard this Christmas story thousands of times, but all of a sudden, today, for some reason, it's become more real, more personal. And I pray for anyone who's here who is just hearing this story, maybe for the first time. I pray that this is a December to remember. That this December, they remember that you were the one who gave everything to learn the language of the one you love. God, I just thank you so much for who you are and that we can approach you with such simple language and call you Father, Daddy, Abba. In your name we pray. Amen. We're just going to close with this song, and if you'd like anyone to pray with you or speak with you afterwards, I'd love to chat with you. We'll just be here on the side. Thank you.
I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now. I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 oh. You saw person for redemption that rests on my heart. I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father and fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, my heart is in your sights long before my first breath, running into your arms. It's running to life from death. I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out, just as I am. You pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joel, and thank you for worship team just leading us there as we just have a moment to pause and to reflect. And I just pray that through this December, this Christmas time, that we'll all just find that moment, whether it's just a quiet moment by ourselves somewhere, maybe it be in the shower, or maybe it be just before we go to bed, or who knows where it would be. But don't forget, all we need to cry is Abba, Father. We don't need to have a long speech ready or feel like we're in any place at all, but just to cry out, just as Paul encourages us to cry, Abba, Father. That's all we need to say. So I just encourage you, hold on to that. It's been so great to be together this morning here, and those of us joining online as well, and really looking forward to next Sunday. It's going to be our last service of 2021, so I hope you'll be able to join us as we conclude our December to Remember series. Really looking forward to getting going again in the new year, so we'll share more details about that over the next few weeks. But it's so good to be together. I hope you have a great week, whatever's going on, a few last minute Christmas preparations, wherever you are up to. But have a great week, stay safe, and God bless you, and we'll see you next Sunday.